You are listening to the Social Hotelier Show, a podcast that inspires hoteliers to create meaningful and memorable experiences for their customers in pursuit of their passion. We share our views and experiences relating to hospitality, technological trends, and also relating to humanity. Here is your host, Sam-Erik Rutman.
In this episode, I'm speaking with Dawn Ledet. She is a certified life coach and self-trust expert. And we're exploring the common challenges among entrepreneurs, women in business, and leaders in various industries when it comes to achieving their goals. For instance, how to differentiate between productive work and overwork, and how a life coach guides the clients in finding that balance. But also, there's a self-sabotage as a significant barrier to achieving goals. And also how she helps clients to recognize and overcome self-sabotaging behaviors. Welcome, Dawn. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here, Sam-Erik. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people know about life coaches and self-trust experts, but let's help me to understand, to get some background. And can you tell me about your professional experience and why you chose a career as a life coach? I know you worked in hospitality at one time in your life.
I did. I actually started in the hospitality industry. That's what my degree is in from university. And I spent 20 plus years leading sales and marketing teams for hotels. I've actually worked through several parts of the hospitality industry, from restaurants to country clubs, and then the latter part of my career, the final 15 years, was as a sales and marketing director for multiple hotel properties in the New Orleans area. And I just have so much love for the hospitality industry. I feel like that's where I grew up and learned so much about service, which we all know it has to be a big part of any really business, but the hospitality industry, of course, shines as a light for how to do that to all other industries, in my opinion. So in that time of working for the hospitality industry, I became very aware that I was struggling with continuing to reach different heights in my career, constantly moving up and forward, but feeling more and more disconnected from myself and the service that I was wanting to provide for others. And so at some point it broke. I got to a point where I literally had to sell my car in my mind, to walk 2 miles to and from work, because that's the only way I thought I could control leaving work at a normal time and getting exercise. And that was sort of the desperate wake-up call that something's going on here, because it's not the job that's the problem. And it's really not that I, can't control how much I work. So why am I having to trick myself into working less? Why am I having to force myself? And that's when I realized that I needed to turn in and see what was happening for me. And it became this path of trust, noticing that it all led to trusting myself. And the difference wasn't that because I was achieving and I could watch others achieving, but from this place of overwhelm and burnout and never feeling like what you're doing is enough or who you are is enough. And so I had a forced break from the hospitality industry and decided not to go back and to start seeing how could I put this new knowledge into improving myself and then helping others.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I know that, I had worked my entire career in hospitality industry, and I think there's a tendency of being sort of high achievers, and then it also creates a lot of pressure on yourself. So I can fully relate to that. Unfortunately, I didn't have the foresight of do what you did, walk 2 miles and kind of clear my head a little bit and get some exercise and so on. So, but this is very interesting how you have transitioned into this career. But what is the role and responsibility of a life coach and self-trust expert, because this must be, you must have a lot of responsibility because you're dealing with people's emotions and their insecurities.
Well, I mean, in general, life coaches are meant to support you to create desired change in your life, right? So whether it's to lose weight or make more money or improve relationships with yourself or others, life coaches help you to achieve those goals by guiding you actually to your own inner wisdom and helping you to shift perspective, to see instead of this kind of tunnel vision, to open up to what else is possible. Now, my mission as a life coach is a little different in that I help entrepreneurs and leaders in business reach their impact and revenue goals, but in a way that's fueled by self-trust so that their success is not only inevitable, but actually enjoyable. It's enjoyable in a way that you want to continue reaching for new heights, not dreading the next move, operating from a sense of worth and enoughness instead of seeking it.
Yeah. What are some common challenges that you have observed among entrepreneurs or women in business and leaders in the different industries when it comes to achieving their goals?
Oh, number one is just this, I call it the combo of doubt, fear, and worry. There's those thoughts like, I'm not enough. I don't have enough time. Who am I to do this? How can I do this? And those questions or those statements in themselves aren't harmful. They could open us up to curiosity to actually answer them. But when we let them land as if they're fact, they become this barrier to your goals, because then you're not only trying to overcome this idea that you aren't enough, you can't do enough, you don't have enough time. You also are reaching for this new big accomplishment. And it becomes a challenge.
Yeah. I mean, have you ever run across that somebody says, well, I don't know, that they are just sort of not very clear of what they want, and then they're looking at you with their clear eyes and deep into your eyes saying, well, help me, let me know what I don't know. What can I do?
Yes, all the time. And it's human nature, right? Yeah. I don't know is a really easy, not to diminish it because it is a go-to, but it is sort of an easy solution when we are not sure.
Yeah.
And the invitation that I always bring is to let's explore without any requirements, with no obligation to act on anything we explore. And it's so fascinating because the mind is so willing to open up, but because we often answer desires or wants with like, I have to move into action, we almost immediately shut it down ourselves. So when we allow this like exploration with no obligation, it tends to open up some doors.
Yeah. I can relate to that very much so. Yeah. You mentioned I think I read about it, and you talk about self-sabotage and a significant barrier to achieving goals. Can you elaborate how you help your clients recognize and overcome those self-sabotage in that fact?
Yes, there are some amazing experts out there talking about self-sabotage, and it makes sense. But often it's in the actual defining of yourself as self-sabotaging that becomes the barrier. Those experts and what they provide, it's a lot of great information to help you understand yourself, but often we don't go that route. We just stop with, oh, I just self-sabotage. And it almost lands as if like that's a reason not to move forward. So the truth is that when we do that, we are pitting ourselves against ourselves, when what our goals need is a united front. You are for you and your goals. So self-sabotage actually suggests otherwise. And we want to make sure that we're coming at our goals from this united front, just like any other like team. We would want to make sure everyone's together to create success. Yeah.
So what kind of strategies do you employ to help your clients in order to get away from this self-sabotage way of thinking, and then to actually looking at more of a positive and constructive that helps them to even be more productive in their own way and a better self-fulfillment.
Absolutely. So we look at first normalizing those thoughts that they're calling self-sabotage. And that comes from just what we study about. So, for instance, the motivational triad, which is our brains, our sort of primitive brain, some people call it, that lower brain that is looking to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and to conserve energy. So if we understand that is a normal brain function, then when those thoughts come up, like, you can't do this, you've never done this before, what are you thinking? We know, like, of course, that makes so much sense when trying to do something new, to stretch ourselves, to reach for something more, that our brain will offer us some of those caution lights. Now, when we see those as red flags and we stop, it becomes a barrier or a problem. But when we recognize them for what they are, caution lights, then we can do just as we do when we drive and we see a caution light. We're going to roll through with caution. We're going to look for, are there any actual dangers? Is there information that we need to move forward in a clearer, stronger way? But we still move forward. We don't stop unless there is a clear and present danger. So that is the first thing we do. And then we start to learn how to continue the conversation with those thoughts, because they are one side of the story driven by concern for change. But when we can tell ourselves the rest of the story that we want change, there's this higher brain, our prefrontal cortex, that wants to experience different things, wants to reach for bigger goals, wants to do differently, then we can have a really lovely conversation that supports all of us and our efforts towards our goals.
Yeah. Have you encountered clients who sacrifice personal peace and relationships in their pursuit of feeling enough?
Without feeling enough, yes.
Yeah, I mean, for them, there's something that they want to feel enough, and somehow it's what they do at the moment is not enough, and they're pursuing. They are very hard on themselves, and being hard on themselves also will impact their personal peace, and the stress levels goes up, and their relationships are suffering from this, and because they are so driven, like we know in the modern society, there's sort of a high achieving goals that they set for themselves and creating those pressures on themselves, but they also may have in fact sacrificing their personal peace, as I call it, or a mind, and then relationships may suffer in that process and so on. So I just wonder if that's something that you run into, or is this not an issue?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely, for all of us, including myself, that was something that I very much dealt with before. And still, occasionally, this work is an ongoing practice. But once you start to do it, you become this being who operates from self-trust instead of always in this doubt, fear, and worry. It doesn't mean doubt, fear, and worry go away. It just becomes this welcome companion to this trust you have for yourself. But for sure, that high achieving pressure seems to be synonymous, but they're not at all. And that's the whole work that we do at the Self-Trust Lab, is that we are separating those. It's a choice. You can be a high achiever. You can reach for big goals and not have that added pressure and not judge yourself. It's like we think we need to punish ourselves to move forward and move up, or else we won't do it, which is honestly just a complete lie. But because of some ways that we were taught growing up, I don't think no malice intended, but because of it, we sort of make those things one instead of being two separate things. Because if you notice, even when you aren't reaching for big goals, you will judge yourself and you will be hard on
Yeah.
yourself. So it is not about the goal or what you're reaching for or not achieving or are achieving. It's very much something that comes from how we interpret that inner dialogue, the tone we hear it in. So that's the other thing we really address is taking that from an adversarial relationship, those voices that come about, and really recognizing where they come from, whose are they in some cases, because sometimes we adopt some rules and some messages from different times in our lives and we then force them on ourselves, and start looking at what can we do, what is this messaging and how can we use it where it's useful, change it where it's not, and just kind of let it go where that's possible too.
Yeah. So what kind of strategies do you employ to help clients to turn the caution lights into opportunities, or this attitude that some people may have that stops them from finding a way to move forward in a peaceful mind?
Yeah, I think the first is that we look at the truth that so many of my clients come to me and they think they're in their own way. Why am I in my own way? I keep getting in my own way. And we have to come to the terms that you are the way. You actually can't get in your own way. You are the way. Now, that means that there are choices that either decisions that move you towards your goal, or decisions that don't move you towards your goal. And we're making those constantly, and there's nothing wrong with that. No need to judge them. But there is an incredible need to own them. Again, sometimes we think if we own something we don't like the result of, that we then need to judge ourselves and blame. But we learn about, what I teach is data versus judgment. We want to pull the data from the results of our decisions, not judgment. Then we can use it to make the next best decision. Because the truth is that is the only way to achieve anything. And I have a 3E success method, and it's so simple because the only thing it takes to achieve anything is to make decisions, follow through on those decisions, and then have your own back on the results and what you do with them. And that includes evaluating, taking the data of what worked, what didn't work, what should we do differently, and using that data to make the next decision, and then follow through, and on until success.
Okay. Yeah, very good. You have mentioned about the narrative from self-sabotage to a relationship of caution. Can you share some success stories where the shift in mindset has made a significant impact on the client's life or business? But I'm sure also it has a positive impact on you as the coach.
Yes. Oh, so many to choose from. I just yesterday, one of my clients who is a physician was spending a lot of mind drama in making the wrong choice with a patient, and just really consumed with this and having trouble just in moving forward. And what was so interesting is that when we explore the data, when we look at the truth behind it, he made the best decision based on what they had available to them. The patient was doing amazing. It's like all this that you build in your mind keeps you from moving forward and living your life, instead of celebrating what you did right, what went well, and then pulling. There was some, of course, data that informed like necessary tools they need available to them for the future that will serve future patients. And instead of celebrating that as a win, he really was turning into self-blame and judgment. And so just reminding of that motivational triad that loves to like say, hey, you're a high achiever, you do things right, which is a lovely thing and true. But because he could see with his analytical brain some things he could do differently, instead of just letting that be true, he turned it into a problem for him. On another end, I have a client who's an entrepreneur, and she made this slight change in her business. She has this beautiful business, working great, added a new price onto one offering, not very significant either. But because of that, was making it mean that she was going to lose clients and no one was ever going to buy from her again. And it was going to be such a problem. And it just took some looking at data, reviewing the facts of who wants her services, how many people she's already served, hundreds, and making a decision to move forward accordingly.
Yeah, well, that's fascinating. Well, Dawn, I have just a couple more questions before we wrap up today. One question I'd like to ask my guests, besides what we talked about, what trends do you see happening in hospitality leadership? Because the leadership in hospitality is like a business leadership, and also what that hoteliers should take note of, because I'm sure when you're dealing with physicians like you have entrepreneurs, they are dealing with a lot of business issues, but hoteliers sometimes are not ready to move, ask for help. They try to solve their own problems in many ways, which is obviously not the right way to go about it. But what advice would you give to hoteliers who are listening to this? Because I have in 90 countries hoteliers listening, and somebody said, well, maybe I should contact Dawn about this.
Yeah, I think what hoteliers do so well is service, right? And remembering that service that extends beyond the guests. You are in service to your employees. You are in service to yourself and your own goals. You're in service to your shareholders or owners or investors. And you're in service to your guests. It's a lot of service. But if we can stay focused on that service instead of on maybe what's driving, like the motivational triad, what's driving some words from any of those parties, including in your own mind, you can separate that out, focus on the service, be curious in how you can continue to extend it. You can't lose.
Yeah, fantastic. So if people are interested to find out about your coaching services, how can they do so?
Yeah, they can find me at theselftrustcoach.com. I also have this beautiful training on mastering your inner dialogue. So all those things we were talking about, those thoughts that come from the motivational triad, the tone of the thoughts that sound like they're self-sabotage, and how can we differentiate them and turn them from stop signs into caution lights. And if you go to theselftrustcoach.com/self-talk, you can get in on that free training now.
Excellent. So Dawn, I appreciate you joining me today in this episode, and I learned so much about this, which I didn't really know about the kind of work you're doing, valuable work you do to help so many people who are struggling with their issues and self-sabotage, how to find their way around to have a more empowered life. So thank you for those fantastic insights, and appreciate everything you have talked about today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure being here.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Social Hotelier Show. Make sure to visit our website, b8bhospitality.com, where you can subscribe to the show in iTunes or Spotify, so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us too. Be sure to tune in for our next episode.